lot of emphasis also on how the healthcare industry and system needs to be brought together there. And as the main gist of it, if I'm correct, is, get the opinion from the healthcare professionals. They are the experts, and then implement it with law. Don't let the lawyers try and decide what's the best for the kids that are not qualified. We had a great response from attendees from the countries. As I said, a plethora of various different careers also covered. We received literally hundreds of questions before the webinar, during the webinar, and hundreds after it as well. What we have therefore decided to do is to try, and we can't obviously get through that many questions, but what we've tried to do is to group them into 5 different areas, which Dorcy will touch on us first of all, and then later on in the schedule today, around about 6:25, we're hoping to have a live question and answer session when both Dorcy and Dr. Childress will be available to answer your questions. So firstly, let me introduce the top 5 questions. If you like, sounds like I'm introducing something top of the pops or something, a music billboard thing, but the top 5 questions are, number 1 most asked question, the authentic voice of the child being heard in the courts. How do we know that that voice is authentic? And is it the voice of the child we're after, or the choice of the child? Interesting question.
Love that.
Number 2, children over the age of 12 are considered to be somewhat mature overnight by the courts, and therefore some feel that they are being abandoned by the system on the basis that they are now kind of qualified to have their own voice, but should they have their own choice? Number 3, practical solutions for treatment and reunification between alienated parents and children of all ages. Dorcy, that's your speciality, your area. I'm not even going to go there. I know you'll handle that with great aplomb. And number 4, prevention, early intervention, and the role of the child and the family agencies. So TUSLA, CAFCAS here and various other bodies around the world. And one of the most important questions that we've been asked, and this comes up again and again and again, and it's one to which we have no answer. So we'd be absolutely delighted, Dorcy and Dr. Childress, if you can help us with this one. And this is where parental alienation is being used by an abusive parent as a strategy to win the custody battles and extend the abuse. So with that, I'd like to warmly welcome our second guest speaker, Dorcy Pruter, who is the CEO and founder of Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, who will talk today of her expertise in providing active solutions to recovery, and we'll be very interested in hearing about those, from the complex trauma of parental alienation and restoring self-authenticity and healthy attachment bonding to parents. Dorcy, you're very, very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm a little nervous. So many important people on the call today, and I feel like it's exciting to follow Dr. Childress, and also nerve-wracking because he's an amazing speaker and provided such awesome content yesterday. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for participating and for having me here. I will share my PowerPoint and as a visual aid, and most of what I do will be talking about solution today from all levels of the family dynamic. So not just from when it's beginning. So for the mediators and people that are just starting out in the family divorce process or separation process, solutions there all the way through to the high road and adult children that are grossly ignored, unfortunately, in this space, and mostly because people just don't know what to do. And so I hope I can provide as much value as I possibly can for you guys today and for the practitioners. I hope that you implement the strategies that I am teaching you today. It's not as hard as you think, and we've been led down a path that has created a massive crevasse in this family dynamic from problem to solution. So hopefully today we bridge that gap and we bring everybody together in a unified voice. So I'm going to tee up my PowerPoint and get started. Give me 1 second. Okay. So, parental alienation, the solution for the pathology known as parental alienation. And I say that in quotes because most of you who were on the call yesterday or who have been following Dr. Childress's work for a while understand that parental alienation is not a diagnosable pathology. However, it is an urban term that we all know and understand. So I'm going to use it in my presentation today. And at the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, we are focused on solutions of this global epidemic known as parental alienation. And I would like for today, for those of you who don't know how to solve it, that today is the day that you commit to being the change agent in your community and the solution-focused practitioner that says no more of this pathology, and that you're willing to really step up and solve this family dynamic in your local community. So Dr. Childress frequently says it's always in the child's best interest to fix things. So in other words, if there's a breach in a relationship between a parent and a child, it needs to be repaired sooner rather than later, always. So I'm going to share with you solutions that I've shared with other mental health providers and legal professionals through the past several years. I've really been doing this work since 2006. Dr. Childress and I have spoken several times together. We started where we presented to mental health providers and lawyers at the AFCC conference in 2017. As you can see here in this image, we presented at the APA conference, the solution, an evidence-based solution, the high road at the APA in 2019. So it's not new. We've been talking about this for a long time. And as Dr. Childress talks about, the solution is really anchored in already accepted constructs of psychology. I'm not a psychologist. I am a coach and a mediator and a businesswoman. And while Dr. Childress says that a lot, there's an important piece of understanding why being a businesswoman has really also helped me provide a solution to this family dynamic known as parental alienation. Because most mental health providers and legal professionals don't know what they're looking at when they're looking at this family dynamic, or when they're reviewing evidence, they don't know what the phenomenon is or how to solve it. If they do know about parental alienation, they may be using the old construct of Richard Gardner and sort of loosey-goosey trying to figure out, is it this or is it that? And Richard Gardner, as Dr. Childress has said, has taken us off into the wilderness and created a new form of pathology, and it's created chaos and confusion in the family court system and in the mental health community. And that's rippled out into the families. And it's really rippling from the core of the trauma in the family lineage all the way back to the beginning of time to today. And so when we look at the solution and what we do at the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, we're really focusing on the core of the issue, which is the trauma or the transgenerational trauma that Dr. Childress mentioned yesterday that's rippling through the family line. And my purpose as a human on this planet is to really illuminate the path to purpose for others and to really illuminate where the blocks are, right? So the path to purpose oftentimes is blocked with roadblocks or giant boulders, if you will, which are our traumas, little micro and macro traumas from our childhood and our past, our family lineage. So in families where one or both parents are pathogenic, this happens. We actually work with families where both parents have pathology. Both parents may actually be guilty of allowing their anger to impact the child's relationship with the other parent. But oftentimes in these family cases, that's not the case. It's usually one pathogenic parent who is stirring the pot and everybody sort of falls in. It's triggering the pathology or the little micro traumas in the other parent's brain, in the system, in the professionals, and everybody is triggered by the pathology. And so we really look at how do you solve this and how do you stop the triggering in all of the different micro traumas in the brains of all of the people involved. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit later in my presentation. So parental alienation, it's the end of an era. We are ending the parental alienation as we know it. In the simple terms, parental alienation is a term, an urban term that was created by Richard Gardner to really describe the pathology of when a parent attempts to undermine the relationship with the child and the other parent. That's just a simple term. All of us know that. That's a very basic level. Because children are suggestible, many will eventually succumb to the pressure of a pathogenic parent towards the targeted parent, and they will feel forced to choose a side. When a child aligns with a pathogenic parent, they become the representative of the pathology and they have an agenda and they become aggressive, oftentimes hateful and rejecting towards their targeted parent. And the child experiences an emotional cutoff from a normal range parent, and that often spills over into the extended family and friends. And this has a profound negative impact on the child emotionally and psychologically for the rest of their life. And we cannot allow this emotional cutoff to happen and to stay breached for a long period of time. And unfortunately, as all of us know, this has been happening for decades, and mental health providers and legal professionals haven't been able to solve it. And the truth is, a solution exists. So there are many ways to prevent. So one of the questions was, how do we prevent it from the beginning? And we're going to talk about that today. And then what do we do with the families that are already in the family court system and all of the struggle and chaos that's ensued around that, and including all the professionals? And then what do we do with the families that have already experienced a long-standing emotional cutoff? We must speak in a unified voice, okay? This is critical. Dr. Childress has been saying this for over a decade. I'm saying it. It is true. We can no longer operate with two paradigms. The old paradigm is done. It's over. It no longer exists. You need to scrap it and toss it in the trash. That old paradigm creates the chaos. It's a red herring that is used in the family court system to say, look over here, while I continue to abuse the children over here. So one of the concerns is that people are using, pathogenic parents are using parental alienation as an excuse to continue to abuse children. I'm going to talk to you guys today about how to get to the bottom of things quickly in the family dynamic so that you understand what's happening and who's causing it. Is it mom, dad, or both? And if it's both, what to do about it? If it's mom, what to do? And if it's dad, what to do? It's not about elimination, it's about integration. Our goal is to not eliminate anyone. Family is family, period. Children have one mom and one dad forever. And even if they remarry, they split and remarry, then they have a bonus mom and a bonus dad, okay? There is no replacement of mom and dad. Children love both of their parents, and they deserve to receive love from both of their parents, and they love both of their parents, even if their parents are abusive. This is a fact, okay? I know that's controversial, but children love their parents, and they want the abuse to stop. So I'm going to talk about how to recognize that and how to eliminate these situations where we're eliminating parents and actually learn to integrate them. All right. Many target parents start to view their child as an alienator because they buy into the narrative that the child is independently creating their own scenarios, and how horrible the target parent is to be accepted by the alienating behaviors of the child. So the truth is, parents start to believe this because they are so destabilized by the pathology. And because the child is acting out and nobody understands what's going on, the targeted parents often start acting out. They start reacting to what's happening. They either come full force or they disappear. And it is because this belief, this limiting belief, this story, this lie that people believe that their child is bad. There's no such thing as a bad child. There isn't. Sometimes there's bad behavior. Behavior can always be changed. Okay. So many parents start to view their kids as the alienator as well. And oftentimes will reject their children because their children are rejecting them. Of course, this is normal and it happens. And it happens because targeted parents are completely destabilized by the system that is not serving them, that blames them and really pushes on to the targeted parents the responsibility to solve this pathology. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The targeted parent is actually responsible for solving it, but not from a perspective that you think or that they've been forced to do. So I'm going to talk about how to help empower the targeted parent, which I believe is the chosen parent. I coined the phrase the chosen parent back in 2017, and I really truly believe that the targeted parent is really a chosen parent. The child has chosen that parent because they know that they're the one who's going to lift the family out of the pathology. So I wanted to participate today because I have a lot of knowledge and wisdom about the solution, firsthand knowledge and wisdom about the solution, because I've been doing this for over a decade, almost 15 years now, of recovering families and children and reuniting severely alienated kids that have had emotional cutoffs sometimes for decades with their left behind chosen parent. So when parents divorce, often both parents struggle with their parenting at their foundation, and it's rocked because of the trauma of the marital relationship ending. So this happens with all parents when a trauma, a split happens. They bear down on their children unconsciously. They toss all their parenting skills out the window because they are focused in their trauma on the micro trauma of the divorce. So it could be a micro or macro trauma, depending on how the parents divorce. But when it happens, the parents momentarily bear down on their kids. They toss their parenting out the window. Now, a normal range parent will find their footing fairly quickly and get back into like, oh yes, I'm a parent, and start to parent their kids again in normal range. Pathogenic parents struggle and frequently remain unstable. So they start to spin because they are triggered based on the trauma of their childhood. So it could be a micro or macro trauma of their childhood, but the divorce is an event, a decision-forming incident, if you will, that's triggering something from their childhood. So they start to spin. And it's really a chemistry thing. Their emotional brain starts to produce cortisol, floods their body. Their body is spinning in a cortisol spin zone. And normal people, you can regulate your cortisol in 15 to 20 minutes, but pathogenic parents often will spin in cortisol for a really, really long time. And when they're spinning, they just keep getting re-traumatized and re-traumatized. They have an unresolved trauma and they are triggered by the separation or the divorce, or it could be something else. So things could be going okay. And then the targeted parent might remarry or something else might happen that trigger the pathogenic parent to become unstable. Pathogenic parents, when they get triggered by many, many different things, they frequently use that as an opportunity to alienate, both consciously and unconsciously. So it's not their intention sometimes, but it's their pathology. It's the way their brain is wired. And so they start to spin. And then everybody else around them, including the children, react to the pathology in the parent. The pathogenic parent can easily be triggered into that unresolved trauma from their childhood, just like I said, and that manifests into projections into their current family system. Now, Dr. Childress talks about this transgenerational trauma, and I'm just going to touch on it here just as a framework because somebody may only be watching this presentation, and I want to make sure that they have the foundation of what we're talking about as we dive into solution. So if this goes unresolved, it will escalate into a full-blown emotional cutoff and between the child and a normal range parent or the targeted chosen parent. And when this happens, the child will need to be protected, okay, from the pathological abuse or psychological abuse of the pathogenic parent. And I don't want to spend a lot of time here. I just want to frame up the understanding of the basis of which this family dynamic is created and what is the triggering events or the trigger event that causes the pathology to trigger in a parent. So sometimes a parent can seem pretty normal range, and pathogenic people, they operate in normal society everywhere. And so we need to learn how to live with and connect with people that are pathogenic. They're everywhere. They're in our schools, they're in our governments, they're in our homes sometimes, they're in the grocery store, they're in our workplace, they're everywhere. And oftentimes they don't even realize they are suffering from a pathology. And oftentimes they are stuck. Well, they're stuck in their victim mindset. Sometimes their pathology lays dormant and gets triggered in a divorce or separation or an event that brings it on. I just want to say quickly, not all families who are experiencing pathology need a full protective separation. So it depends on when you catch it and the targeted parent's ability to learn and implement skills to recover their child. And you as the practitioner's ability to teach those skills to both of the parents and the child. One of the things that sets us apart from most people or most programs or I guess classes and things that people that work with this family dynamic is that we look at a whole family problem requires a whole family solution. And we also look at this as teaching the child how to be in relationship with both parents. So it sets us apart from most people because most people focus on a problem and not a solution. And most people focus on the child, but not teaching the child, but victimizing the child. And I want to teach you how to elevate the child appropriately with their authenticity, the authentic voice of the child, which was one of the questions, the authentic voice, what does that look like? And how you can recognize that in the child and how you know when the authentic child is not in the room, when the authentic child is not speaking, when the inauthentic child is speaking. So we'll talk about that today. So let's dive in, shall we? Solutions for the pathology known as parental alienation, prevention at the early stages. I want to start by talking about prevention because most of the time we do these presentations or we talk about parental alienation, people are only talking about the cases where there's a full emotional cutoff and they don't know what to do when the family is starting out or they're starting to see the symptomology. What do they do in the beginning? So I want to talk about prevention because the practitioners on here, you have a tremendous opportunity when you start working with the family to prevent the pathology from escalating to a full-blown cutoff. You actually can do this and it's easier than you think. So I know some of you are like, oh, maybe you've never worked with these people. I've worked with thousands of families. I know that prevention in the early stages starts with education, and it is really, really critical that you learn the proper process and understand what's happening so that you can educate from the beginning and prevent the need for a high road. I look forward to the day that there isn't a need for a protective separation and a high road workshop. I really do. I really believe that that is possible. And it's possible if you guys as the practitioners step up and resolve this by preventing it in the beginning. So prevention requires education at the early stages, and this is designed really for divorce abuse prevention. So the first thing is really to provide parents with skills necessary to make child-focused decisions. This seems basic and simple, and it seems like, yeah, we get that, but how many people are actually doing that? How many practitioners, how many of you are actually educating your clients in the beginning on what it means to have a child-centered divorce versus a child in the middle divorce? How are you teaching the parents skills? And listen, I'm a coach and a mediator, so I understand that skills are really critical, and coaching is different than therapy. Oftentimes, by the time they come to a therapy session, or they hire a therapist, they're working on a problem. They keep looking backward, and you're trained to look backward. And looking back is important because you need to understand the foundation, and we'll talk about that. But the importance of moving the family forward is skill building for prevention. So even if they're starting to experience some of the alienating behaviors, you can start teaching these skills to the parents on how to prevent this from escalating. And if you have the opportunity, which I think a lot of you do, to work with the kids, teaching the kids the skills is really critical. And we'll talk about that. So parents learn that their behaviors and choices will determine how their child will ultimately adjust to the divorce. Okay. A divorce is a micro trauma. Okay. The separation of the parents is a traumatic event for the children as a micro trauma. It only becomes a macro trauma depending on how the parents handled the divorce. Okay. So, or separation, you don't have to be divorced. So it is a micro trauma, even when you have multiple children. So if you have one child and a couple of years later, you bring another child into the world, that's a micro trauma for the child. The child who's been your whole universe for a couple of years, all of a sudden has to share you with this other new being that's come into their life. It's a micro trauma. How you handle that creates the difference between a micro and a macro. Okay. So same thing here, the separation. Is it a micro or a macro? Micro traumas, micro events, decision forming incidents, those are things that you can clean up and help educate the child as it's happening versus creating a macro that has to be dealt with later on. So our classes are designed to really educate parents about children's issues in divorce. And we really focus on the child and how they respond to divorce and how the parent's behavior impacts the child, because the child is the one who's really bonding the family together. And so parents, if they don't get it right and they're bearing down and they don't lift up on the child is spinning. Right? The child is now trying to parent up to one or both of the parents. And so we want parents to really understand how the child at different stages, how they are actually perceiving the divorce, and how the parent's behavior impacts how the child is perceiving the divorce and how they can shift. So for parents here, if you're doing something some way, don't worry, you can always change your behavior. It can always be changed. It's never too late. So child-centered, meeting the needs of the child, being preventative in the beginning and having the parents role model can quickly help you detect as a practitioner who is causing the problem. And from there, you can teach the skills to really prevent the escalation of the pathology. So when you are working with these families, really understanding and role modeling the skills will actually help you flush out who's doing what. And you can do this in the beginning when you're skilled and you learn this, it becomes second nature for you. You start to see it everywhere, by the way, and you can start to really eliminate the pathology in the family dynamic by teaching these skills. So pathogenic parents can be very crafty, and they're really good at hiding what they're doing by showing up in therapy and making statements like, I want the child to have a relationship with the other parent. I want the other parent to just do what they're supposed to do. They need to figure it out. And oftentimes there's this, unforgivable event, or there's this illusion of that. And parents and professionals, targeted parents or chosen parents and professionals, are left to try to figure out what's happened. And so it becomes this guessing game. So being preventative will really help the parents get out of that guessing game and help you as the practitioner remain in the role of leader, right? You're leading the family out of the pathology. Child-centered divorce skills really involve teaching many, many different things. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you're going to want to explain how conflict and trauma harms children. It's important that you understand this so that you can explain it to the clients. They need to know what's happening for the child and give them the warning signs so that they can become aware. It's like when you buy a new car, right? When you first buy a new car, you think you're getting the only one in that color. And the next thing you know, the car is everywhere on the road. Every other car looks like your car. Is this the same thing with explaining to parents how conflict and trauma harms children? So you need to know as practitioners, if you're a mental health provider, if you're a coach, if you're a mediator, if you're a family law attorney, have material for your clients to help them understand how their conflict, how the parental conflict and the trauma is harming their kids. And then help parents really to create a conflict resolution strategic plan when conflict happens. Help them create it before it happens so they know what to do when it does happen. And there are tons of conflict resolution models. We use a problem pyramid so that we help the parents understand like who's causing what, whose problem is it to solve. If it's the child, how to teach the child the skills. The goal is not for the parent or the family to be dependent on you. The goal is to teach them to solve their own problems so that they can do it on their own. You don't want them to have to keep running back into court and keep running back into your office. And by the way, for those of you who are like, oh, you don't know, these pathogenic parents can't learn, that's simply not true. I don't believe that. And you shouldn't either. If you believe that, you're actually creating the pathology or influencing the pathology. You're creating a belief system that they can't do it. It's not true. They absolutely can. We must believe in their ability to do the work and to learn the skills. Everybody can. Educate parents on how divorce impacts children. Micro traumas can become macro traumas if they're not handled properly in the beginning. And even if they're not handled properly in the beginning, they can start wherever they are. Okay. Children love both parents. Children deserve to receive and give love from both parents. This is fundamental. You must understand this in your practice. You must understand this, okay? Children love both parents, period. Okay, not sometimes, maybe not, or the parent is abusive, they don't love them. No, they love their parents. Children love abusive parents. They do. I know that's controversial. People don't want to believe it. It's true. They love both of their parents. They don't love the abuse. They want the abuse to stop, but children love both of their parents. Children want their abusive parent to stop abusing them. Children frequently ally with their abusive parent. You can talk to people that work in foster care. You can talk to practitioners that recover families and deal with kids in foster care with all kinds of abuse, and they will tell you that they cover up for their abuser. Alienated children are children that are being psychologically abused. They ally with their abusive parent in the pathology because they are parenting up. Okay, they are parenting up to the pathological, psychologically abusive parent. They're allied with an abusive parent. They love that parent. They're rejecting a normal range parent because they choose that parent to do the work because they know that parent is going to do the work. Okay, that is the truth. If you don't believe me, then you need to get out of this business. This is the truth about this family dynamic. It is true. And you need to understand this so that you can recover these families, okay? It's not normal for children to reject parents. It is not normal. When a child rejects a parent, something is happening. And so we have to get to the bottom of who's causing it. Is it mom, dad, or both? And then what do we do about it? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. When children love both parents, we have to teach them that two teachers are better than one. We need to help children understand that mom and dad teach differently, that they're different people and they're different sides of their family, and they're reunited or they're united into the child as one, period. End of discussion. That is true. All the good and all the bad from both sides of the family integrated into the child is one. The child holds the container of both sides of the family, the trauma, the love, everything. That's held in the child. And we have to understand that. And when a child rejects a parent, they're rejecting half of who they are. We cannot allow that to continue to happen. It must stop. So when a child is rejecting, we must teach them how to integrate. Okay? Very critical. Focusing on the other parent's positive qualities is critical in teaching children how to love both parents and how to receive the love from both parents. You must do this with the parents and do this with the child. And you as a practitioner must find these qualities as well. And I know it can be difficult. Parents can be annoying, especially pathogenic parents. Sometimes chosen parents are annoying. Parents are annoying. They're suffering. They're suffering in their trauma. We don't want to leave them in trauma. We want to remove the trauma. And we do that by focusing on what they want, not what they don't want. So just like parenting skills, if we want something from the other parent, we focus on the good behavior of the other parent. Most of the time we're focused on how terrible they're acting or these things that we don't like. And so God, the universe, whatever you believe, keeps dishing it up for you. You keep getting what you don't want because you keep focusing on what you don't want. Same thing as for you as the practitioners. So we want to focus on what they want. Oftentimes when parents come to our practice, They'll tell us their story, spin, spin, spin. And I'll abruptly say, I hear all what you're saying. I've heard that story a million times. My question for you is, what do you want? And oftentimes it's a blank stare back. They don't know, because they've been spinning in the pathology in this family dynamic for so long. They've been in the family court system for so long that nobody understands what's happening. They're stuck, and they finally get a voice, a human on the other end who says, I get it. This is what's happening. This is what's happening next. And they're like, oh my gosh, somebody gets it. They finally feel hope. They feel understood, right? But they're still spinning, but they don't know what they want. They've lost their way. It's our job as practitioners in this field to help our families get back to what they want: healthy family dynamic. Pathogenic parents want that too. They don't act that way because they're children who are triggered in their childhood trauma, who've become adults, and they are triggered. They are spinning in a cortisol spin zone, and they don't know how to fix it. They don't want to do what they're doing. They're suffering too. We must apply empathy to the entire family system. We don't pick off, well, I'm going to just work with this, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to do this. And it's a whole family problem, whole family solution. Okay. Whole family. We don't eliminate, we integrate, 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 integrate. If we eliminate, we're teaching the child that part of the child is bad and that must be gotten rid of, right? We must get rid of that part. We can't, we have to integrate, okay? And we must educate parents on how to shift from an intact to a separated family dynamic in a healthy way. This happens in the beginning. It can happen even if you're in the legal system, and it can happen even in the worst cases where the child is experiencing a full emotional cutoff. It can also happen in families with adult children. We've worked with families all around the world, everywhere, and I've watched parents recover their children after decades, okay? Decades of no contact. It is an abomination that decades have gone by, that children have not had relationships with their parents. It has to stop. We have to stop this. So prevention is how we do it. Woo, makes me emotional. I get emotional on my own talk. We got to educate parents on working on their own upset emotions, their own unresolved trauma from their childhood that is being triggered by their separation or their divorce or events after that that's triggering the pathology. We must educate parents, both parents, not from a blame place, right? This is not blame and shame. This is a place of understanding, empathy, and compassion. I understand. I see you. They want connection. Connect with them. The fastest way to turn a pathogenic parent from pathogenic to recovered is connection. Sounds crazy, but it's authentic connection, not feeding pathology connection, but authentic connection. So we have to teach parents how to disengage from conflict and how to re-engage with empathy. Empathy is the core. It is the critical component that's missing in most people's practice in recovering families. Empathy for the chosen parent, empathy for the child, and empathy for the pathogenic parent, empathy for the family. We must operate our practice with empathy, period. If you don't know what that means, I suggest taking a class with Brene Brown, who talks about empathy. It's critical to be crystal clear on what empathy means, and that you're learning that and you're implementing that so you can help families re-engage in empathy. We got to help parents identify their emotions, and the emotions are contagious, and help them pick the good ones, okay? Emotions are contagious. So if you're picking apart a chosen parent, if the child comes into your practice, I'm talking to mental health providers or lawyers or even mediators, I'm talking to the practitioners here for a second, because I see this happen time and time again. And parents come to us and they are completely destroyed. They are completely traumatized. They're traumatized by you guys. They're traumatized by the practitioners who are triggering and poking the chosen parent. They are blaming them. They're making them try to figure out how to solve this when the practitioners aren't solving it themselves. And they are completely traumatized. And so they are acting or reacting to the trauma inappropriately, and they're getting blamed for that. And so the crevasse just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the chosen parent, they've lost their way. They've lost their way because we aren't showing them the path. We aren't teaching them that emotions are contagious. So you may get hooked into the emotions of the child. It's easy to do. but the emotions of the child are the emotions of the pathogenic parent. It's easy to do. So all of a sudden we're listening to the child, right? The child, I don't like this parent. I don't want to go to that parent's house. They're abusive. They're this, they're that. Maybe they did something, right? And so we're now focused on the unforgivable event, and we just keep bastardizing the parent, the chosen parent, right? The beloved parent. And the parent apologizes. Okay, I'm going to apologize. But the child says, it doesn't matter. See, you didn't apologize for a long time. Now you're apologizing. You're a liar. I still don't want to spend time with you. And the practitioner throws up their hands after sometimes years and says, there's nothing I can do. Sorry. Divorce is hard on the kids. Just wait around. They'll come around someday. And they never come around, right? That if you're doing that, please stop. Okay. Please stop blaming the parents. Please stop blaming the chosen parent. Please stop blaming anyone. This isn't about blame. This is about helping people understand that we are all human and we're all connected by our human emotions and that they're contagious. And you are not above being hooked into the contagion of the pathogenic parent's unmanaged emotions. It's easy to do. You have to check yourself. You've got to teach the parents how to check themselves before they wreck themselves and their family. Okay. If you are blaming, it's okay. You can stop right now. So for practitioners that find themselves in that negative loop of spiral, stop at any time. You can take control of and reestablish the foundation of solution in your practice at any time. It starts with you as the leader, as the practitioner leading the family and teaching them the skills and helping them understand that emotions are contagious. You need to assist parents to shift the role for spouses to co-parents, okay? Co-parents may be parallel parents. If there is abuse, sometimes they have to parallel parent. Parallel parenting is co-parenting, okay? It's just on two tracks simultaneously. So you teach the child how to bridge baseball and basketball. Many kids can play two sports, right? So we want to teach them how to play basketball and baseball and that those two teams don't compete, okay? So we want to teach them. Co-parenting can sometimes be parallel parenting depending on the family situation. This needs to be taught in the beginning. And then we want to redefine the parent's relationship as a business contract of co-parenting. So remember earlier, and Dr. Childress says, Dorcy is a businesswoman. I am a businesswoman. And I've run a very successful business in this industry. And I used to be in the mortgage industry, and I ran a very successful business in the mortgage industry. And the truth is business is business is business. And co-parenting is business, okay? It's a business agreement between two people who chose to bring a child or children into the world. And when you view a contract as a business contract, you help them remove the unmanaged emotions from the contract. For you mediators, this is really important. Use a template. We have a wonderful template that's 28 pages long. You don't need all of it, but you can use it as a way to help them design a business agreement on how to co-parent their kids, okay? Develop healthy communication skills. Oops, typo. Communication kills, but skills, you get it. You want to check their communication styles, okay? You want to see how the parents are communicating. Everybody communicates differently. They have different styles. Understand the different communication styles. So as you're working with the family, you can help them understand the communication style so that they don't take everything personally. This is really important. Use iMessages. We teach iMessages from the beginning all the way through the high road. We talk about iMessages because it anchors into the person who has the upset emotion. What is it and why do they feel that way and what do they want? Help them identify what they want. Using iMessages takes the chaos out of the situation and brings it back to cooperation. Active listening allows somebody that's using an iMessage, the receptive listener, the person to actually listen to what they're saying. So instead of arguing the whole time, they're actually listening and responding. That doesn't mean that they have to agree. It just means that they're learning skills to actually improve how they're communicating. If you implement this as a practitioner, you can lead by example and teach the family how to do this as well. And you help parents identify what the problem is and whose problem it is to solve. This is critical because problems are always going to be there. Conflict happens. It happens in all relationships, and we need to teach people how to resolve conflict. Even pathogenic people, you've got to teach the skills. Do it in the beginning so that if a massive conflict comes up, you can use the framework of conflict resolution to help them get back on track. We do this in the high road. We do this in our custody coaching and co-parenting. We do this everywhere. And you would be amazed if you just implement the simple strategies in the beginning, how much chaos and conflict you will eliminate in these families. And you've got to teach parents how to negotiate versus demand. Most of the time, parents are destabilized. We fuel the destabilization by, instead of negotiating and teaching them how to negotiate, we feed into the demands of the child. I don't want to. I want, my parent needs to go to therapy. My parent needs this, that. I'm not going to eat broccoli over there. We feed into those delusions and those demands of the pathology, the pathogenic parent through the child, that we as practitioners will get hooked into that and start making demands. So no, we want to teach them how to negotiate, right? How to ask for what they want, how to make a proposal versus demand emails back and forth. So teaching them how to communicate with each other is a core skill. It's a foundational skill that will eliminate most of the chaos that happens in family court, even in the most complex cases. So you want to help them create a conscious co-parenting relationship plan. So this realigns as co-parents consciously, okay? They realign as either parallel or conscious or co-parents, but they realign in what that co-parenting plan looks like. They want to minimize the negative influences. This happens when they have a plan. Without a plan, they're just flailing around. They're reacting to each other. Even normal range parents will react to each other. Okay. So if they have a plan, it's a go-to. They can keep going back to it to make sure that they're staying the course. And then sometimes maybe things in the plan change, right? Maybe they have to elevate their plan or shift their plan because the children are getting older or something has changed. But if they have a plan, when they have a plan, it helps them minimize the chaos and the confusion. And not just a plan, but a detailed plan that has consequences that apply to both parents. Use the business relationship model that we've talked about. It takes all the spinning emotions out of it and places this as our contract. This is how we're going to agree to raise our children, even if it's baseball and basketball. Okay. And you're going to clarify boundaries in a healthy way. Learn these skills, you guys. If you learn these skills, you can teach these skills by role modeling and teaching them to your clients, and then be dedicated to a healthy future. We want to teach parents, even pathogenic parents, okay, how to have a healthy future. What is that? Right? What does a healthy family dynamic look like? What does it look like to solve normal range problems? What does it look like to solve crazy problems in a normal range, healthy way? Okay, we've got to teach these. These are all the things that a conscious co-parenting relationship plan include. And then let me tell you a little bit about custody resolution method. So that the first part is really prevention, but it's also layered in. So everything we do sort of layers into the next level and into the next level. It's thread throughout everything that we teach, and it's important. The custody resolution method, Dr. Childress touched a little bit about this yesterday, is really a data organizational tool. Let me stop. It is a wraparound program for a whole family problem that requires the whole family solution. There are different components to the custody resolution method. And I created this program because there was a massive hole in the family law system. And families that are dealing with pathogenic parents are going into the family court system, and they're trying to solve this family dynamic known as parental alienation with the law. Sometimes we need the law, but unfortunately, we're asking lawyers and judges to solve a mental health crisis in our families, and they don't know how. It's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're stupid. It's because they're lawyers. They're trained to practice law, and mental health providers are trained to practice mental health. But something that's happened in this family dynamic and with mental health providers surrounding the family court is that we've gone into the wilderness of this, new pathology called parental alienation, which isn't a new pathology. And we've incorporated, like Dr. Childress said, forensic psychologists. So they're thinking differently. They're not thinking about solution. They're only thinking about asking a lot of questions and looking at stuff forensically. And unfortunately, that's created a massive mess. And so when a child aligns with a pathogenic parent, they become the representative of the pathology, and everybody gets emotionally hooked into the pathology. The lawyers, the judges, guardian ad litems, special counsel, minors counsel, parenting coordinators, mediators sometimes, mental health providers, they get hooked into the pathology and they aren't solving it. And this creates more pathology, and it creates a bigger split in the family. And I created the custody resolution method out of this massive hole in this space of like, what is happening and why are the lawyers not understanding? And one of the reasons that legal professionals don't understand is these cases are wrought with just amazing amounts of data. Emails and text messages and police reports and CPS reports and, mental health reports and, you name it, right? Audios and videos. And there's so much data in these family law cases. And, sometimes you only have 5 minutes in court to present something to the court. Sometimes you have a long trial for evidence, but you don't know what you're presenting. Like lawyers are like trying to sort through all of this stuff. They're relying on the forensic psychologists, but they're relying on this new pathology called parental alienation that the APA says isn't a real thing. So now the mental health community is fighting. So everybody's like, I don't, which way do I go? I don't know what to do. So they do nothing. And the problem continues to get bigger and bigger. So custody resolution method was designed out of my sheer frustration as a parent and a practitioner, as somebody working with these families, to say, wait a minute, this must stop. What are we looking at? How do we create a scenario or an easy to understand scenario so that the lawyers and the judges can understand what's happening and implement a solution? So this is how this program was born. I want to talk a little bit again about the chosen parent. This is the parent that the child chooses, formally known as the targeted parent. This is the parent the child knows, who can often and will often go to the end of the world to discover what's going on, to recover the family. And I like this term because it is empowering. It says to the chosen parent who's been lulled to sleep by the dysfunctional system, you are not a victim. You're not a victim. You are chosen. Your child knows that you are going to do the work. Now, the system has victimized a lot of chosen parents, and sometimes consciously, most of the time unconsciously. This isn't about blaming anyone. This is about the reality of the situation. And we must empower the chosen parent. The chosen parent is the leader of the family. They are the ones who are going to do the work. If we destabilize them as practitioners and we focus on targeting them, we focus on blaming them, we focus on them fixing things when we don't know how to fix it ourselves, then we are destabilizing the leader of the family. We are extinguishing their light. We must stop that. We must stop extinguishing the light of the chosen parent. They are the light for the family. They are the ones shining the light on the pathway out of the pathology. The child chose them. We must also choose them. We must embrace them. We must embrace them with compassion and empathy, and we must empower them. We must elevate them in the family hierarchy where they have been taken down, as Dr. Childress talked about yesterday. We must elevate the chosen parent back into the family hierarchy. We must do that. We, as the people on the front lines working with the family, you must stop blaming the chosen parent. Even if they've done something wrong, we don't blame. We educate, we teach them skills, and we elevate so that we can reintegrate quickly, okay? Quickly. Stop taking so much time to figure things out, okay? I'm going to teach you how to do that a little bit today, but I'm not a mental health provider, so I don't do assessment and diagnosis. But the custody resolution method takes a lot of what Dr. Childress has done and lays it out for a legal strategy for the mental health provider, for the legal professionals, and now we collaborate with mental health providers. But I want to say this here because the solution stands squarely on the chosen parent as a leader of the family. Do not blame them. It is not from a place of blame. It's from a place of elevation and empowerment, from a place of empathy. So the solution requires the old paradigm of parental alienation using Richard Gardner's framework to be dead. we can no longer use that framework. Okay, I get it. I used it for a long time. I'm a child of this pathology. I understand it. When I went through my own divorce, that's all there was. I learned early on, the Gardner 8 criteria. And I was like, yeah, that all makes sense. When I first started tagging timelines and creating this program, I used that as well, because that's all there was. But there was a problem with it. It was too loosey-goosey. It was like left up to the practitioners to figure it out. And it's like, I don't know. And it was too hard. And so when Dr. Childress and I met, he brought into my world, just like he has to you, an actual foundation of what is going on, a simple pathway to solution, a simple assessment and diagnostic model that says, these are the symptoms, this is what's happening, and here's the diagnosis, and here's what to do about it. Okay. Gardner, dead. Sorry. I appreciate the fact that he illuminated something that was happening around family court, and we can all have gratitude for that, but we must now put that in a nice little box and send it down the river. It does not lead to a solution. I know I've operated under both models. That model does not lead to a solution. And let me say here too, you cannot use both. Okay. So for those of you that are trying to incorporate both, stop it. Stop. The Gardner model has created the pathology in the family court system. It is creating the chaos. It is creating the conflict. It is creating parental alienation is not a thing. It is creating parents are using parental alienation as a way to abuse children. Okay. That is that model. It's created there. Stop using it. If you use it, you're going to be part of the problem, and you're going to continue to kick the solution down the street. Okay. It's old. It doesn't work. It's done. All right. I'll stop beating a dead horse. Let me talk a little bit about the diagnostic indicator checklist. Dr. Childress talked a little bit about that yesterday. I'm going to talk about it today because we use this in the custody resolution method. It is simple. It is brilliant, and it will determine what is happening in the family dynamic from the child's perspective. What is happening? So we're focused on mom doing this or dad doing that, and he said, she said, da, 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 chaos, chaos, chaos. When we look at the symptomology in the child, Dr. Childress so brilliantly states this, there are 3 impossible symptoms, each one alone, in all of society if it shows up in the child. What is going on? If the child has these 3 impossible symptoms, something is causing it. Is it mom, dad, or both? So we at the Institute, we look at the data. We look at all of this data, emails and text messages and reports and all the stuff that these cases have, and we look at it from an analytical perspective. What's happening? Does the child have the symptoms, right? You start with the child. Is the child symptomatic? If yes, then we move out. Who's causing it? Mom, dad, or both, or somebody else? What's happening? Okay. So I don't want to dive too much into the diagnostic checklist here. You can download it on Dr. Childress's website. I'm pretty sure all of you have it. If you don't, for God's sake, please go to Dr. Childress's website and download his assessment documents that have this checklist. It's brilliant. It simplifies things for you. It really, really takes you out of the wilderness and the spin zone and back into accepted constructs by psychology, right? This is what's happening. Anchor into psychology. Stop talking about parental alienation. We're talking about it here because it's what we know, but I'm going to move away from that. We're talking about pathogenic parenting. We're talking about child psychological abuse. So this is another image from Dr. Childress. I'm moving into some slides that Dr. Childress created for our presentation at the AFCC. And Dr. Childress and I met in the summer. We met in the fall of 2013, and we started to collaborate in the fall of 2014. And I met Dr. Childress at a conference that I was speaking at on parental alienation. And in the summer or fall of 2014, I took a class he was hosting at the university in Southern California. And I was the only person there that wasn't a mental health provider. One of my clients who I had recovered her stepchildren in the high road begged me to go. And so I went, and I was super excited to watch Dr. Childress roll out his assessment and diagnostic model in a university setting. And I was like, yes, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. And then at the end, he started rolling out a therapeutic model for solution. And I'm like, well, wait a second, why would you take 9 months when I can solve this in a matter of days? And And after class, big Dr. Childress, he's a big guy. He's like 6, I don't know, 5. He's huge. He's tall. He says, "Hey, I want to talk to you after class." And my friend kind of scampers out, and Dr. Childress and I met after his class, and we talked about what I do as a coach and things like that. And he sent me an email, and in the email was this beautiful document, and it had this image on it. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I do. And so thank you, Dr. Childress, for this, for everything I say. Sometimes, I'm like talking all over the place, and Dr. Childress will write this beautiful article or document about, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. So this solutions focused model, this is a proposed treatment model, and it's composed of 4 separate but interrelated components. And they're important because you can interchange the role of whoever's in the middle, but the person in the middle is somebody who's organizing the treatment or the solution, if you will, for the family. And so the coach or the consultant, this is the person that really serves as the interface, right? For the treatment team. They are like, lawyer, this is what's happening. Therapist, this is what's happening. The psychologist, maybe they bring in the psychologist if they need a psychological consult or assessment. But this is the person who is looking at everything and saying, okay, this is what's happening in the family, and here's who we need. These are the players. These are professionals that need to be involved. This is the model of custody resolution method. When clients hire us, we act as a dual role. We have a coach that's assigned to the client, and they work with the chosen parent, stabilizing them, teaching the skills that I talked about earlier: communication, how to communicate with all the professionals on the team, how to communicate with the other parent, how to communicate with the children, how to show up differently for the children, how to create the soft place for the child to land, how to be the emotional trash can, if you will. I've talked about this in higher purpose parenting, where they learn to let the child dump the rubbish, the garbage, into them, and they take it out. They don't hold it into their emotional container anymore. We teach those skills to the parent. That's what the coach does. I act in the role as a consultant in this process. So I work with everybody on the team. We have data taggers that tag timelines based on the pathology, based on all forms of child abuse, and also who's doing it. So we tag the data based on what's happening in the family dynamic. The timelines are cool because it organizes everything chronologically. We can sort by the symptoms in the child, but we give the case narrative. There's a data output. What does all this data mean? We provide that to the lawyer. We can provide it to the guardian. We can provide it to the evaluators, to the therapist. We can provide it to everyone. We work collaboratively with everybody involved in the family case to say, hey, everybody, this is what's happening, and here's what we do about it. So in the lawyer, it could be an amicus lawyer or collaborative lawyer. Right now we have 2 lawyers, sometimes 3 in these cases because they're pretty complex. But the goal is to move to like a 1 lawyer model where the one person is really helping resolve the legal issues in the family. And then the psychological consultant, this could be Dr. Childress or somebody in your area that understands the attachment model, that understands the pathology, that can act as a professional expert in the court, that can understand, that can interpret the data. And then also a family therapist. This is the person treating the family, okay? This is the person treating the family, all right? Should be one person that is working with the whole family problem, whole family solution, okay? This person, even when there's abuse, can be working with different parts of the family at different times, but the goal is integration, not elimination, okay? So if you think about that framework, then that's what that person is doing. They're bringing the family together and integrating, right? Let me just go a little bit more into the diagnostic checklist. This is the foundation of everything that we tag in our timelines, and then we move out from here. So I'm just going to jump into this really quickly because for those of you that don't understand the diagnostic checklist, or other people who might be watching this later, the diagnostic checklist was a document created by Dr. Childress to show the symptomology and for mental health practitioners to use to determine what's happening. If the child has these symptoms, then to figure out what the cause is. So The first symptom is the child's suppression of their attachment, their motivating drive to attach with their parents. If they are experiencing emotional cutoff with one of their parents, then they're experiencing a suppression of their emotional or their attachment system. That needs to be fixed immediately. We cannot leave that in a breach state. I don't care what has happened. We must fix this, okay? We must fix this. We must help the child, right? Learn the skills to give and receive love from both parents, all right? Not elimination, integration. Starts with education. And then the personality disorder traits. These are the 5: absence of empathy, entitlement, haughty and arrogant attitude, the splitting pathology of mom's all good, dad is all bad, and grandiose. These are the personality traits towards the chosen parent. Okay. And then the delusional belief, the child believes it's an encapsulated persecutory delusion. So Dr. Childress talks about, it's a belief that this parent is causing the child harm, that the normal range chosen parent is causing the child harm. And this is how they come into your practice, and you're trying to fix this. And many times practitioners are trying to solve a delusion. We'll just apologize. Well, the child has come to believe that it's true. So now you need to apologize for it. Stop that, because you're just reinforcing delusions in kids, and the family, it doesn't solve. So I'm going to give you a little kernel of something that we use in the high road right here. If this is happening in your practice, you can stop this by putting a ceasefire, a moratorium on the delusion. You can simply take your practice back, take responsibility for this, and step into that leadership role by letting the family know that this is an unresolvable issue. It's over here. We're not going to talk about that anymore because we can't solve it. We can't go back and do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to build skills moving forward from here. Are you seeing a theme? Skills, skills, skills. But first, you must diagnose what's going on. If you don't know what's happening in the family, how can you possibly help them solve it? The diagnostic indicator checklist is a simple tool to use. Now, I'm not going to dive a lot into the assessment here because it's not my role. There's also a parenting practices rating scale that you can use to determine who's causing the problems. But I'm using this here because I'm talking about what we use as a foundation in the custody resolution method based on our data. We're looking at the data. We're looking at the historical data in the case. I want to bang through these really quick. The associated clinical signs. These are things that Dr. Childress has added to the diagnostic checklist. So if the symptoms are there, you can go through these associated clinical signs. And if they're there, check them off. In our data tagging, we have at least a minimum of 7 to 8 of the 12 associated clinical signs, but frequently 10. So on average, there are 10 of the associated clinical signs in almost every data profile that we tag. So use of the word force, you can't force me to see the other parent, the enhancing the child's empowerment to reject the other parent. This could be the child should decide. We need to listen to the child. We talked about this in one of the questions, how do we listen to a child when the child is being alienated, right? Then that's the inauthentic voice of the child. This checklist, if you use this, you will quickly discover whether the child is being authentic or not, okay? The exclusionary demand. It's not normal for children to not want their parent to watch them play soccer or to be involved in their life. It's creepy that they're taking pictures of me. How dare you videotape me? When last year, when the marriage was intact, they did that, but this year now it's creepy. If the child is saying this, we see this almost in every case. Parental replacement. We see this when there's a new spouse or a new boyfriend or girlfriend, then the child starts to replace that parent, calling them mom or dad. No, that is not appropriate. Mom is mom and dad is dad. Have another name for the stepmom or the stepdad. I like to call them the bonus parents. Bonus means that they bring additional love to the child, not rejection, okay? The unforgivable event, the event that I was just talking about where the child can't let it go. It's because the other parent can't let it go. This we see almost always in our cases where the child is, I never want to see my parent again because they took my iPhone away from me. I mean, simple stuff. It can be drastic stuff too, but the unforgivable event. There are no events that we see that are unforgivable. Even child abuse. I'm going to say this here, and I know it's controversial, but child abusers are adult children of child abusers, and we don't eliminate people. We educate and we rehabilitate. In all other areas of child abuse, the goal in CPS is to educate, rehabilitate, and when possible, reintegrate, okay, reunite with abusive parents. It's only this area of abuse that this is not happening. And we are today where we were 40 years ago with child sexual abuse. It wasn't that long ago. It's in my lifetime that we have child protective services and we're saying, hey, you know what, we shouldn't sleep with children. Yeah, of course not. Gross. It's child abuse, right? That's the family dirty little secret. Dr. Childress talks about that's where this pathology comes from. You know, the lineage of child sexual abuse in the family, right? This is what's being triggered by the separation. Oftentimes parents are triggered by their own childhood pathology or maybe a couple generations back, okay? This is how new it is. And then it's only in my children's lifetime, that we are now protecting children from physical abuse. It was when my first daughter was born, maybe just before that, that we were saying as a society, we shouldn't spank children. We shouldn't hit children. Wait a second, physical abuse of children is bad. We should be doing something about that. We should be protecting children from that. Seriously, that's where we are. And today is where we are, where we were 25 years ago and 40 years ago with sexual abuse and physical abuse. Today, we're with psychological abuse, waking up as a society saying, hey, wait a minute. We shouldn't be doing this to children. Children shouldn't be rejecting parents. We shouldn't be eliminating parents from something's wrong, right? This is having long-term consequences for families. What are we doing? Yeah, we should protect children from psychological abuse. Psychological abuse kills the child from the inside out, okay? It leaves scars that we don't see. It creates pathogen, okay? It creates pathogenic parents, all right? If we allow children to reject parents, what we're saying is we're going to allow this to happen to you. We don't care about you. We're allowing you to become pathogenic so that your children can experience the same pathology. We don't want to solve it. Sorry. And this is a tragedy. We need to stop this. Stop it. 12-year-old children, 15-year-old children, 18-year-old children, 25-year-old children, we shouldn't be allowing young adults and children to eliminate parents from their life. It is colluding with abusive parents, and we are abusing children. If that is what you're doing in your practice, please stop. You're abusing children. You're colluding with pathogenic parents to create psychopathology in a child. If you're focusing on issues that didn't happen, you're focusing on delusions, you're creating psychopathology in a child. I'm going to say it. I'm a bold person. You may not like it. Sorry, that's the truth. That is what's happening. Stop it. And then the fake and a liar. We see this as an associated clinical sign all the time. Not every time, but we see it a lot. And then we see themes of rejection. So oftentimes the themes of rejection could be they're abusive, they're mean, they don't feed me. There's all kinds of different themes of rejection. Unwarranted use of the word abuse. So the child says abuse when further investigation, they don't really know what that means. The excessive texting with or phone calls and emails with the pathogenic parent on the chosen parent's time. And then also the role reversal of the child. It's not me, it's the child. It's the child who doesn't want to go to the other parent. I can't force them. I want them to spend time with this parent, but you know, that parent needs to fix their problems, okay? If you see this, you need to dig deeper. But if hopefully you're going to be using the checklist and you understand. The allied targeted parent deserves to be, the targeted parent deserves to be rejected, right? The children say this, the court says this, the pathogenic parent says this. We see this all the time. Everybody's jumped on the bandwagon that the chosen parent, the targeted parent, they deserve it. So if we see the symptomology in the child, this is a red flag. And then the allied parent disregards court orders or the authority of the court, okay? And they encourage the child to do this. If we're encouraging children as professionals to ignore court orders and the court's authority, we're in fact telling the child, hey, the laws don't apply to you. Don't worry, you can do whatever you want. The laws don't apply to you. Our prison system is filled, in America anyways, filled with 89% of the, or roughly 89% of the prison population, both men and women, all races, are raised in a one-parent home, mostly a fatherless home. Okay, this is a problem. This is what we're causing. This is what we're creating by eliminating parents from children's lives. We must learn to integrate. Okay, if you're not using this, you're doing it wrong. use Dr. Childress's diagnostic indicator checklist. We use this as the foundation of our tagging to understand, is the symptomology in the child? Do we have a subthreshold of the symptoms, or are the symptoms actually present? And if so, what are we going to do about it? Now, not all roads lead to the high road. So everybody thinks when they come to us, we got to have a high road. I need to protect the child. We got to take him out. Da, 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 da. Not all roads lead to the high road. Back in the day, I used to think all roads led to the high road, because I really believed that that same delusion that most people believe, that the targeted parent, right? I was believing that they were targeted, and I called them a targeted parent, and I focused on that. And something shifted in me, and I realized, no, these are the chosen parents. We must light their fire again. We must illuminate them. We must help them shine the light. We must teach them how to shine the light for the family, how to lead their family out of the pathology. I would prefer that the chosen parent does the work in the custody resolution method. They're learning those skills that I talked about at the beginning. And when they learn those skills, even while they're already in chaos, so for those of you who have families already in court, we can lift the family out of the pathology, okay? You can learn these skills, you can teach these skills now. Our coaches know these skills and they teach the parents, okay? We can lead the family. The parent, the chosen parent, must do the work, all right? Not from a place of blame, from a place of empowerment. They must learn the skills and implement them, okay? Not one time, usually multiple times, okay? So most people want to talk about the problem. We focus on the solution. We have to understand what the problem is. That's what our data does. Our data looks at all forms of child abuse. Our data looks at, we look at the pathology, the diagnostic indicator checklist. We look at all other forms of abuse. We're trained to assess that kind of abuse based on data, not from a mental health. We're not mental health providers, but from the data. Does the data represent that? And then the parenting practices, does the data represent who's doing what? What's happening, okay? Our narrative says, this is what's happening, here's what you do about it, all right? So not all roads lead to the high road. During the custody resolution method, the coaching and our online courses, Higher Purpose Parenting, teaches you, or teaches the targeted parent or the chosen parent, how to clean up their vessel from the inside. What are their traumas, micro and macro traumas? What are they? How to clean them up so they can shift how they're showing up for their children, so they can learn to manage their emotions, right? That they can be emotional trash can for the child. Instead of taking it in and taking it personally, they can take it in, put in a nice, good, smell good liner and throw it away, right? Creating that soft place for the child to land. Teach the parents how to do this. Do this. If you role model this as a professional, you will teach the parents how to do this. This is what we do. Professionals working as a solution-focused team will follow a solution-focused model. You'll follow a model where everybody is collaborating together. You'll educate parents and empower them with skills, and you'll make sure that the chosen parent is supported properly, okay? Elimination, no. Integration, yes, we want to integrate. It's a whole family problem, requires a whole family solution. We need to stop segregating people out. When we put only the child in therapy, the message that goes to the child is something's wrong with the child. If we put the targeted parent or the chosen parent in therapy, we're saying to the chosen parent, there's something wrong with you. If the chosen parent and the child are the only two in therapy and there's a pathogenic parent causing the pathology in the family, they're not getting treatment. They need treatment. They need treatment the most, but we're ignoring them. They're not getting the treatment. Whole family problem, whole family solution, family therapy, family systems therapy, where somebody understands personality disorders and understands attachment system, golden, okay, golden. And then in the custody resolution method, we tag and analyze the data, and then we give it meaningful data output. In the custody resolution method, Dr. Childress, we can give him the codes based on the diagnostic indicator checklist and the parenting practices rating scale, and he can write an if this then that report. We can do that with your mental health provider. We're happy to get them up on board and up to speed on how to do that. He's only one person, right? He's the only one. We need lots of them. We need you as mental health providers. We need you doing this. I'd love to not have to do the custody resolution method anymore because you're doing this, right? This really is your job. You should be assessing and diagnosing. Dr. Childress has a beautiful assessment and diagnostic model that leads to treatment. Assessment leads to diagnosis, leads to treatment. I'm repetitive. Dr. Childress says that all the time. It's true. And so many times families come into like a court-ordered practitioner and there's no assessment. You're just trying to do something. You're trying to fix stuff. Well, what are you fixing? You need to know what's happening so that you can diagnose it, so that you can treat it properly, so that you can move the family out of therapy. You can teach them the skills. You need to move to a skill-based model, a solution-focused model versus a problem model, okay? Skill-based model says these are the skills, this is what's happening, these are the skills, teach the family, teach them how to solve their problems. You're going to demonstrate with empathy and respect for everyone, for everyone. The whole family is the patient. The whole family is the client. You have respect and empathy for everyone. Okay. You help them look for alternative solutions. Help them find solutions. Don't just give them solutions. Help them find the solution that already resides within them. They already know. You want to help them respond versus react. Okay, you want to help the parents respond to what's happening versus being destabilized and reacting to what's happening. And you want to help them set healthy boundaries and limit the behavior. Okay, so this isn't about elimination. It's about integration. And oftentimes I see therapists and I work with therapists and they're like, really, you know, the targeted parent, they don't know, they're not respecting the child's wishes, so they don't know what their boundaries are. No, that the child's wishes in this family dynamic are not the child's wishes. We're just reinforcing delusion and pathology when we do that. Stop. Okay. Help them set healthy boundaries. Help the child understand the importance of giving and receiving love, unconditional love from both parents. Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about the high road. Let me just check my time here. I don't even know how much time we have. I don't even know what time I'm supposed to stop. Ken, am I still good on time? I've got probably...
You're going well. You've got another, I'd like just see, you're good till 6. So you've got another 28 minutes, Dorcy, but you don't have to use it all with presentation. We can do question and answer whenever suits you.
Okay, excellent. Awesome. Good. All right. I know some of you have been waiting for the high road, wanting to know what the high road is, how it works, why it works. And the high road is a catalytic psychoeducational intervention. Dr. Childress coined that phrase. I love it. It's true. When Dr. Childress and I met several years ago in his office, I opened up my high road treasure chest and said, let me show you what I'm doing. And in that meeting, which was a 2-hour meeting that became a 6-hour meeting, Dr. Childress really was like, oh my gosh, I can see what you're doing. We did battle in that meeting too. You know, there were, why don't you become a psychologist? I'm like, why? He's like, well, maybe you'll get rid of the flying monkeys. I'm like, well, you have flying monkeys and a lot of psychologists do. So what's the point? And I've already solved it. I don't want to go clutter my brain with something that doesn't work. I'd rather focus on what does work. We went round and round about that in a playful, maybe heated way at times, but you know, here we are today. And Dr. Childress understands the high road. He's observed the high road. He's actually taken a child into maintenance care after a high road. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But we never leave a child and a parent bond breached. It is the worst thing that we can do in this family dynamic. We do not leave it breached. If you're leaving the breach in a parent-child relationship, you're actually causing harm to the child and to the parent. It's abusive to both people. It's also abusive to the pathogenic parent because you're reinforcing the pathology in the pathogenic parent. We must stop the pathology. The pathology can be healed. I know a lot of mental health providers think that's not true, that you can't help a narcissist or you can't help a borderline, or no, you absolutely can. Everybody can learn new skills. Brain research, we've discovered that you can rewire the brain in adult life. You can actually use different parts of the brain and start exercising the muscle, that muscle of the brain, and access empathy. So it used to be said that people with pathology don't have empathy. It's not true. They do have empathy. They have the empathy center in their brain. They just simply have not built the pathway to access the empathy. There's a lot of research that's happening in prisons right now that are with prisoners that have the most extreme of the psychopathologies and antisocial personality disorder. And they're discovering that they, through skill building and practice, that they're actually growing the neural pathways into accessing the empathy center in the brain. Okay, huge. If we ignore this, we are causing or we are influencing and continuing the psychopathology in the parent. Stop. We can actually teach them the skills. All right. It's repetitive. The world has given up on them. The societal message is that they don't deserve it. They do. They do deserve it. And the reason they deserve it is their children deserve it. They're just an adult child. Okay. An adult child who was abused, and the system or somebody, the family forgot about them. They didn't help them. Okay. Now they're the parent, and now they're parenting, and they're pushing their psychopathology into the child. And if we don't stop it, if we don't help them, then the child can very easily develop the pathology. Okay, so we want to end it in this generation, and we can. We all have the skills, or you're going to learn the skills. You can do this. It's a simple framework for a solution. If there is child abuse, any kind of child abuse, we must first protect the child. Okay, if all three diagnostic symptoms are present and you determine that it's child psychological abuse, you must protect the child. All right, we must remove the child from the abusive situation. If the child was being molested, we would remove the child. If the child was being beaten, we would remove the child. Psychological child abuse abuses the child from the inside out. We must remove the child. We must remove the bruising in the child's attachment system in the child's brain so that we can recover the child. Okay. We then educate the child and the chosen parent, and we restore the unbreakable bond. The bond between a parent and child is never broken. It is not broken. I don't care how damaged it is. I don't care how rejecting the child is. I don't care how many decades have gone by. The bond between a parent and child is never broken, ever. It's just tucked below the surface for safekeeping. When the chosen parent rises up and learns the skills, creates the soft place to land for the child, the authentic child, they give the child permission, the authentic child permission to rise up again, and the bond is resurfaced. Okay? Never broken. We then rehabilitate the abusive parent, right? During the protective separation. Nobody is left behind here, you guys. The high road isn't like, oh, dad's out, mom's in, or mom's out, dad's in. No, it's about rehabilitation. We must rehabilitate the pathogenic parent. We must do this with empathy and compassion and firm boundaries. They must follow the guidelines. We must teach them, okay? We must teach them with empathy and compassion. It is not about rejection, all right? We're not moving from one camp to the other. It's a temporary protective separation. We protect all abused children all of the time. We recover them, we restore, and then we reintegrate in a controlled environment. We educate, rehabilitate, and then we reintegrate in a controlled environment, okay? That's always the goal. So when we reintegrate in the controlled environment, we use the relationship rating scale that Dr. Childress shared with you yesterday. We use that to monitor how the child is doing. We educate the child in the workshop, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, on how to be in relationship with both parents. This sets us apart from everybody. We do not focus on blame. We focus on education. We teach the child, mom is mom and dad is dad, and how to give and receive love from both parents. Even when one and sometimes both parents are pathogenic. It happens. What do we do? Sorry, you guys are out. I take the kid. I can't. My house isn't that big. I'd have a lot of children. No, we educate. We fix the family system. Okay. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. There's no such thing. No such thing as a perfect parent. But we teach them how to be in relationship with each other. This is critical. We must do this. We must do this at all levels. Do not let this continue to fester in your practice. If this is happening in your practice, please pay attention. Please implement these skills. So the next few slides I've integrated from the presentation that Dr. Childress and I did at the AFCC conference in 2017. I know, 17. We taught the high road in 2017 to a room full of hundreds of professionals. Guys, it's been out there. If you were there, please pay attention again. If you weren't there and you're listening to this for the first time, I hope some light bulbs come on for you. And I hope that you start implementing what I'm teaching you today in your practice. Please, please do it for the children. Do it for the next generation. Move to something else. Let's eliminate this now so we can move to other things that we get to solve in the world. So I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Childress, because most of all of the images in these slides he created. He's a rock star in helping create visuals of what's happening in the family. So High road is psychoeducational intervention. It involves a sequence of structured activities that restore the normal range functioning of the child. Okay, the normal range functioning of their attachment system. Their attachment system, as Dr. Childress says, is a love and bonding system, right? It's what motivates children to bond, to give and receive love. If it's deactivated, right? If it's deactivated, what's going to happen to that child? You know, back in the day, they would be eaten by predators. We must fix this now. So psychoeducational involves videos, skill building exercises, and ways of unlocking the brain center to help the child recover their authenticity. Okay. So I love this image. There are two treatment models that Dr. Childress talked about in the pilot program. One is the protective separation in a traditional therapeutic model. So you can see in this diagram that the child is the attachment system is dysfunctional. Mom is out, right? That's child psychological abuse. There's an emotional cutoff. Let me just say this here too. A child can be going back and forth and still be experiencing an emotional cutoff. That's the child that might be going into their room, bringing their own snacks, not really talking to the parent, but going on the parenting time. That is still a child experiencing emotional cutoff. So a lot of people in the old models say, well, the child's still going back and forth, so it can't be alienation. I don't know what's going on. Yes, that's an emotional cutoff. A child can go back and forth and still be emotionally cut off from their parent. Okay, so the high road is appropriate for that situation as well. So there's two models. This is a protective separation in the traditional model, where there's a therapist that's involved that works with the parent and the child. And it takes, I think Dr. Childress says, like 6 to 9 months to resolve the pathology in a traditional therapeutic model. The high road is same pathology, but it resolves the pathology in a 4-day intervention. So the high road is a 4-day workshop, psychoeducational workshop, where the targeted chosen parent and the child participate in a workshop with the facilitators, where we go through a series of psychoeducational films and activities and skill building to teach the child and the parent how to be in relationship again, how to transition from the old family paradigm, the dysfunction in the family, how they separated and didn't do a very good job, to how to do it in a healthy way. Okay, we do this in the workshop. A lot of the skills that I've talked about, actually all of the skills that I've already talked about, we teach this in the high road. Okay, it's not complex, you guys. It's pretty simple. Prevention, same skills. Intervention during custody, where the kids are going back and forth and there's still stuff going, same skills. Okay, high road, same skills. Okay, it's not rocket science. It is actually pretty simple. We're just complicating things. There's no need. Okay, it's the old mindset. We've all been lulled to sleep. It's time for us to wake up. All right. The high road is an augmented workshop to a treatment plan that allows us to recover the authenticity of the child quickly. And then there's a temporary protective separation after the workshop, where the child is living with the normal range chosen parent, and the pathogenic parent is working with the family systems therapist. Okay, they're working through the maintenance care. They're working through family systems therapy through skill building with the maintenance care therapist. Okay, that's separate from the high road. They're learning the skills that we taught the chosen parent and the child in the workshop. Okay, so everybody learns the same skills. Nobody's being eliminated. There's a temporary protective separation. This is the child protection model, you guys. Nothing new here, right? This isn't draconian, where a lot of lawyers and opposing counsel will say, this is draconian, this is terrible. No, it's not. It isn't. This is a traditional child abuse model. If the child was being beaten by the father, we would remove the child from the father and we would place the child with the mother. Okay, and we would recover the family. This is what we do, right? Same thing. And then that family systems therapist, they're the person who will integrate the whole family system, right? They will integrate mom and dad with the child, and they will act as the authentic voice of the child, right? They will use the relationship rating scale to understand the child's readiness. It's simple. It's 3 things on the rating scale. It's not complicated. It's simple and easy to implement. We give the child their authentic voice back, okay? An authentic child loves both parents. The authentic voice of the child wants to give and receive love from both parents, right? This is the authentic voice of the child. Anything outside of that is not authentic, okay? It's not authentic. These slides, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. These are the slides that Dr. Childress created for our presentation in the AFCC. I included them because they're awesome and they really provide an awesome visual of what's happening. This is a normal range attachment system, right? The affectional emotion, empathy, and compassion are lit up, as Dr. Childress says. It's working. They're firing properly. When the child comes to the high road, this is what's happening. The child's attachment system is dormant, okay? They're not operating with their affectional emotions, their empathy, and their compassion. It's dormant, it's asleep. So when the child first arrives, they usually show up in protest behavior, anger, which is in these children, and you know, I don't want to be repetitive. I think Dr. Childress said this yesterday, but anger in alienated kids is just a misappropriated grief response. The child is grieving. The child is sad. The child's lost a relationship with their beloved parent. He or she's grieving, and it's showing up as anger. They're mad. They're mad at you, the practitioners. They're mad at you, the lawyers and the judges. They're mad at us because we don't understand their grieving. We're ignoring it. So they're mad that nobody's helping them solve this pathology in their family. They're pissed, right? They're projecting it on the targeted parent, they're targeting that parent, the chosen parent. They want that parent to fix it, and they want you to help them. But we don't get it. We've been lulled to sleep. We need to wake up. Okay, we've got to wake up. The child is angry. They show up at the workshop angry. They do. They're hostile. Sometimes they're aggressive. Sometimes they come with adolescent transport. There's a lot of scuttlebutt on the internet about the transportation companies. These are third-party companies. This is what they do. They transport at-risk youth to different things. Sometimes workshops like this, sometimes rehabilitation, sometimes wilderness camps or behavioral camps like military camps. This is their job. Their job is to transport adolescents safely. They're trained professionals. That's what they do. So sometimes kids come to the high road like that. In the high road, our job from the beginning is to reestablish the family hierarchy. And we do this by helping them understand that the court is the authority, that I'm there as a facilitator, the facilitator's there as the authority of the court, that we are explaining to them that there's a new law and order in their family. This is what it is, that there's a protective separation, and that we are going to fix things. And they reintegrate with their other parent when we fix things. We're not leaving the other parent behind. We let the children know that the other parent is also learning skills. We don't call the other parent the pathogenic parent, by the way. We don't label parents, okay? We label mom and dad. We teach the child that we're going to take care of that parent as well. We help them understand that the family system is dysfunctional. And while they may not agree with that, we're going to fix this relationship and then we're going to fix that relationship. Okay. We help them understand that we're not leaving anybody behind, that we're integrating, not eliminating. Okay. And we do this in the first media piece is about empathy. So I reset the family hierarchy. I help them understand whoever's attending, mom or dad is mom or dad. That's what we're going to call them. These are the rules of the workshop. And this is the law of the land. This is the order of the court, that the court is in charge, that the judge is the ruler of the land and has created a new family paradigm. And my job is simply to teach them how to shift the old paradigm into the new family paradigm, that it just got knotted up at the beginning, that the parents didn't do a very good job separating. And I'm going to teach them how to unknot the family system. Okay. So I don't launch into, all right, you're going to start working with dad here. I launch into unlocking the empathy center. Okay. So the first thing we do is we watch a short film on empathy, and everybody relaxes. Before this happens, there's usually a 5 to 30 minute window of protest behavior. So the child's going to act out in protest. Sometimes they cuss, sometimes they cry, sometimes they're just quiet. Sometimes there isn't any protest behavior. Every time, what I feel is a relief. There's always a relief that's palpable in the room. The child, once they understand that they're protected, there is a release that the child has, that I'm in charge, that they're no longer in charge, that I'm lifting the weight of the world off of the child, okay? There is a release in the child that they don't have to fix it, that we're here to help. They're going to poke to see if they can trust me. Am I telling them the truth? Am I trustworthy? Sometimes they've seen multiple mental health providers who haven't understood what's happening. Sometimes they've spoken to the judge. It's the worst thing to do to this child. Bringing a child into the courtroom and asking their opinion about what to do in their family situation is abusive. Why are we asking the child? We need to stop doing that. We as the professionals and the adults need to fix this. We need to understand, based on assessment and diagnosis, what is happening, and then we fix it. We fix it for the child. We don't ask the child. That's terrible. We don't ask the child. We never place the child in the loyalty bind. When we put them in the family courtroom and speaking to the judge, that's terrifying for them. It can be traumatizing. We're asking the child then to solve it. Stop. We don't ask the child to solve it. We solve it. We help them solve it. Okay. And then we launch into some interactive activities that start to launch the empathy center in the child. Okay. So the compassion center. So first we unlock empathy. The child relaxes. Okay, I don't have to talk to my parent. They're not going to force me to be in therapy. It's not therapy. Okay, we're just going to let the child relax into this. And then we unlock compassion. Now I have empathy and compassion firing. This is day 1 in the morning. Okay, day 1 in the morning, I have empathy and compassion firing. When we do that, we launch into additional media that addresses the anger. We talk about different parts of the brain that deal with anger and influence and projection and racism and all of the things that create anger, right? So we watch out here. We're not talking about what's happening. We watch out here in the family so that the child is learning, right? Not blaming. We're not blaming mom or dad. We're just learning. We're watching short stories about different things that happen that apply to this family dynamic, but isn't necessarily the family dynamic, okay? Anger dissipates. When empathy and compassion are glowing, anger just goes away. They both can't be firing at the same time, right? It goes away, but we still have grief because the child is still sad. The child is still sad that they've lost this time. They've lost this relationship. They're paralyzed with guilt and shame for how they're treating their parent that didn't deserve it, okay? They know their parent didn't deserve the behavior, but they didn't know what to do because we failed them as a professional community. We failed them and they weren't safe. So they were hiding. They were hiding because they weren't safe to be authentic. Okay. So the grief is still there and we treat this very delicately, right? No shame and blame. We want to recover the authenticity of the child. We don't want them to feel shame and blame. We don't want them to feel guilt. We already know. And trust me when I tell you, the guilt the child feels is a legacy that they carry with them. It never goes away. Okay. It never goes away. I'm almost 52 years old. I did reunite with my dad. I've reunited thousands of families and it never goes away. Okay. It just doesn't go away. We must help these kids. We must help these kids. Okay. Then we launch into media that starts to bring the affection forward. All right. So we want to start getting the child affectionately connected to the chosen parent again. We're doing it out here. We're watching media to help recover the affectionate bond. We letting the child know that I can be trusted, right? That I'm not there to harm anybody. I'm not there to eliminate the other parent. I'm not there to talk bad about anybody. I'm there to help them transition to the new family paradigm, to help them invite both of their parents back into their life again, to help them recover their unbreakable bond, to help them receive that unconditional love that they've been missing from mom or dad. And when that happens, that starts firing. Then we have an attachment system that's firing again. And the grief starts to go away. So when we are finished, the anger that's sort of looming in the back, it goes away. And the child's attachment system is glowing. This happens by lunch on day 2. Okay, day 2, we have resurfaced the unbreakable bond with the parent and the child and the parent are interacting. Sometimes on day 2, I have an I love you. Sometimes they are like leaning, there's a hug. Sometimes there's none of that, but there's communication that's happening. Okay, the first night of the road, the family stays together. Okay, the family stays together, the family plays together. The reason that this is so powerful and it works is that we believe, I wholeheartedly believe in the parent, the chosen parent, and I wholeheartedly believe in the child's ability, and I wholeheartedly believe in the unbreakable bond. I know it's true. Failure is not an option. I know it's true. And I believe in their ability to learn the skills and to resurface the unbreakable bond. And I believe in the truth that the attachment system that Dr. Childress talks about is the motivational system of love and bonding, and that it's there always. It's always there. I know it and I believe in it, and I don't believe anything else. And because of that, the parent and the child believe in themselves. They can trust me because they believe in themselves as well. So as the framework, empathy intervention, we watch a short film, couple short films, we do an interactive activity, we anchor into what we're watching in the films, into what the children understand, right? So what does empathy mean? And having them go through and give examples, not just the children, everybody participates. If it's a difficult family, I participate, right? If I have a couple of kids, sometimes it's hard to get them all started. So you've got to know, you've got to lean into the family and know who to start with, who's going to lead the family, okay? So then critical thinking, we teach them critical thinking skills. Just like the beginning of this workshop today, we teach the entire family critical thinking skills. It's important how to think for themselves, how to communicate. We teach communication skills. We teach the family how to solve normal range problems. We meet the family's need wherever they are in the process, just starting out, already in the legal system, trying to iron out all the legal stuff so that the court understands what's happening, so that judges can make informed decisions. The reason judges make bad decisions is because they don't have the facts, or they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening. They don't understand. And it's our job to teach them. It's the mental health provider's job to provide a proper assessment and diagnosis and treatment plan for the judge. They're relying on you. Help them make the right decision to protect children. The judges they're not bad people. Lawyers, they're not bad people. Mental health providers are not bad people. You just need to be getting on the right path and doing the right things and doing it quickly. It doesn't need to take a lot of time. We need to respond quickly so that we can recover children and prevent this from happening. So it's a catalytic intervention that Dr. Childress calls it a catalytic intervention that's innovation. And I love that. I really appreciate Dr. Childress's support. When we started to collaborate in 2014, it was like the sky had parted for me as a practitioner and as a formerly alienated kid, as a targeted parent, as a step parent, as somebody who really is enmeshed in this family dynamic. It was like, oh, thank God, somebody inside of mental health knows what's happening. Oh my gosh, a process that's so simple. It's so easy. We don't need to make it so complicated. Stop making it complicated. Let's make it easy. It's easy, you guys. You can do this. All right. The high road is an entirely different approach. It's about education, right? It's about skill building. It's about whole family problem, whole family solution. It's about integration, not elimination, okay? We do not want to eliminate the pathogenic parent. The child loves that parent. It's about rehabilitation, education, and integration, all right? Whole family problem, whole family solution. And we can use the model, the framework model of using all of the professionals to put the plan in place, to do it quickly. There's no reason to keep kicking the can. So the high road, 8 easy steps. Remove mindset obstacles. It's what we're doing. We're removing the limiting beliefs that we as a professional community and that the family has that's preventing them from reuniting or from transitioning to a new family paradigm. This is done in higher purpose parenting prior to the workshop. We provide that class to families that are attending the workshop so that the parents can use this curriculum to start cleaning their container. When pathogenic parents go through higher purpose parenting, that program is to remove trauma. It's to help you remove your own trauma, the story you created about the trauma, right? So it's micro, macro trauma. They're transforming trauma. They're learning how to live in the new family paradigm. They're learning how to process and manage their unmanaged emotions. Okay, it's about re-education of parents through co-parenting skill building. All right, we want to teach parents how to be in relationship, even if it's a parallel relationship. Okay, we want to recover the authentic child in the child and in the parent. Okay, everybody has an authentic child that resides in them. All of us do. And oftentimes the pathogenic parent and the chosen parent, we're ignoring their authenticity. We're ignoring their authentic child. They're acting out in protest. A pathogenic parent is a grown-up child acting out in protest behavior. Okay, we want to protect the authentic child in the child. We want to recover them. Then we want to do that in the parents. Okay, whole family problem, whole family solution. We want to reestablish the attachment bond, Please, we've got to do this. We must repair this immediately. Ed Tronick, if you haven't watched this video, it's like on YouTube. And it's the breach and repair sequence. It's like 2.5 minutes. It's brilliant. It actually, in a 2.5 minute video, shows you what happens when there's a breach in a parent-child bond. Now, it's between a parent and a baby, but it's worse when it's older. We need to stop this. We need to repair these bonds immediately. And we need to restore normal range family interaction. We need to teach people how to interact with each other sooner rather than later, and integration into the new family paradigm. We need to teach parents how to transition into the new family paradigm, either preventatively, or we have to do it responding to the pathology that's already taken hold of the family. It's never too late. And then we teach them how to rejoice and reward a family celebration. After the high road, the family actually takes a trip and celebrates, right? But we celebrate all along the way. We want the parents and the children to learn the skills of appreciation. We teach this in the high road. There is nothing more rewarding than authentic appreciation, okay? This is a ninja skill we teach in the high road, and they don't graduate until they master it, okay? They master the skill of specificity around appreciation, all right? Appreciating the other person for a positive character trait that they see in the other person and how they've demonstrated it in their relationship. Powerful, you guys, powerful, simple, but powerful. And then the post-workshop handoff to maintenance care, or CAR, but maintenance care. This is the person who is the treating mental health provider, the family systems therapist. You guys could build a team in the solution focused model or the pilot program. Build a team, work together, solve this. You can solve this sooner rather than later. The high road is expensive. You know, it is, it's expensive. It's expensive. It's dangerous to work with you guys. It's dangerous to work with these families. Let's do this in your local community so that you can drive the cost down, right? You make it affordable and obtainable for all families. It is evidence-based. I want to share with you really quick that Dr. Childress took a child into the high road a few years ago, and we had gone to speak in the Netherlands, and I begged him, please take this kid. He's in LA, and I don't have a maintenance care provider. He's gone through all of the therapists. Nobody will work with this family, and they've been in the system for 3 years. Please, please. He was like, no, no, no. And then finally he said, fine. I guess I'm hard to say no to. And he said yes. And he took this belligerent child into his practice, and this kid put a rope around his mom's neck. The court had given custody to the mother, but no protective separation. And the child placed a rope around his mom's neck and said, I'm going to kill you if you make me continue to come on your parenting time. Frustrating, right? He didn't want this. It's a sweet kid, but he had no other choice, right? He was being psychologically abused by a narcissistic parent, a diagnosed narcissistic parent. He'd been diagnosed and placed into CPS twice. They did nothing. Finally, the court responded and said, fine, I'll put the protective order in place. I had to facilitate this workshop in 2 days because I was speaking in the Netherlands. I recovered this child in 2 days. He was so severely alienated. He was punching his mom. He was physically violent and psychologically abusive. He had taken on the narrative of the father. Okay, I recovered him in 2 days. We were gone for a week. Dr. Childress brought him into his practice, and you can see that he was up and down and he stabilized. I want to read something that I got literally yesterday from the parent. Unexpectedly, the child posted this on his Instagram. This is the first time he has posted publicly about us, all his friends to see. This is huge. My middle son surprised us from Michigan, far left, and we all went up to spend the weekend with my oldest son, not going to say his name, far right. Remember, he was the one who brought the child to the high road and stayed with us the first night. What a wonderful tribute to all of us. We fought so hard for our son. And she sent me a picture that is of the Instagram, and I'm not going to show it here. Briefly, I'll show this picture. That was a couple years ago, all right? I get messages like this every day, but just ironically, or divine intervention, I got that from this child, this particular family last night before I was presenting here today, and I just wanted to bring that full circle for you guys. I apologize for getting emotional. See, I love these kids. We need to care about our families, okay? We need to show up with empathy and compassion, not just for the child, but for the child and both of the parents. We need to recover these families, and we must do it quickly. We can do it. We've done it in the high road over and over and over and over and over again. It's not complicated. If there are people on this call that can initiate a pilot program, come together and contact us. Let us do a pilot program with you. Please be the voice of change, be the solution-focused practitioners that bring the solution to your local communities. We can't be everywhere all of the time. So we must work together, the professionals. We can teach parents. We can teach them how to keep their children out of the middle. We can teach them to allow their child to love both parents and to receive love from both of their parents. We can teach them how to work on their own recovery. We've got to do it on our own. We have to work on our own recovery to teach our families. We can develop new communication skills. We can teach our families to do that. And we can create a new role as co-parents by leading by example as professionals in the community. So my final thought here is that of the pilot program, I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday. I'm happy to, and I know Dr. Childress is too, to bring this to your local community. We are thrilled to have so many people join us, and we're thrilled to bring solutions. And I am happy to stay on for as long as it takes to answer questions for you guys today. I know there's a bunch of questions, and if I didn't hit on something, I'm happy to talk about it now. But I just want to say thank you so much for allowing me to share the solutions that we provide. I didn't get the chance to talk about Reunited. We do have a program. It's an online course for adult children. I'm happy to answer questions about adult children in the Q&A part. I was recovered as an adult child. I know that that is critical as well, and I'm happy to help wherever I can. So with that, I say thank you so much. It was an honor to share.